I'm 65 years old, and last Tuesday, my daughter Jennifer sat me down at her kitchen table in Phoenix and said the words I'd been dreading for months. Mom, we need to talk about your living situation. I knew what was coming. The brochures, the concerned looks, the gentle suggestions about assisted living facilities where I'd be safe, where someone could watch over me. But here's what nobody tells you about getting older and needing help. The options everyone pushes on you: moving in with your kids, hiring strangers to invade your home, checking yourself into some facility. They're not the only choices, and sometimes they're not even the right choices. But before we get into the story, please support us by liking and subscribing right now. I also want to say hi. Leave your name, city, and the word present in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from, even in faraway places. My name is Dorothy Miller, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Tucson, Arizona. For 42 years, I shared my life with Robert, my husband, my partner, my best friend. Then one morning he didn't wake up. Heart attack. The doctor said he didn't suffer, that it was quick. That was supposed to make me feel better. But it didn't. What it did was leave me alone in a 3-bedroom house for the first time in my entire adult life. The first few months weren't terrible. I could manage. I cooked my meals, kept the house clean, paid my bills on time. The silence was heavy, suffocating sometimes, but I told myself I preferred it that way. No one to answer to, no one to worry about. Just me and my routines and my memories. But then things started changing, little things that added up. I'd get winded walking up from the basement with a basket of laundry. My hands would shake when I tried to open a jar of pickles. I'd walk into the bedroom and forget why I'd gone in there. One morning I stepped out of the shower, my foot slipped on the wet tile, and I grabbed the towel bar so hard I thought it would rip out of the wall. It held. I didn't fall. But I stood there dripping wet and shaking, thinking about what could have happened. What if I'd fallen? What if I'd hit my head? What if nobody found me for days? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing myself on that bathroom floor, alone, unable to get up, unable to call for help. So the next morning I called Jennifer. I tried to keep my voice steady, tried not to sound desperate. I asked if maybe I could come stay with her and Tom for a while, just until I felt more stable on my feet. She said yes immediately. She said she'd been wanting to ask me herself but didn't want to pressure me. She said I should have called sooner. Tom was kind about it. My grandkids, Olivia and Jake, seemed excited to have Grandma around. That first week felt good. We had family dinners every night. There was conversation, laughter, the feeling that I mattered to someone again. But reality has a way of catching up with you. Jennifer and Tom both work full-time. Olivia's in high school with volleyball practice and college prep classes. Jake's in middle school with basketball and 100 different activities. By the second week, I was alone in their house most days, just like I'd been alone in mine. Except now I was alone in someone else's space, surrounded by someone else's life. The small frictions started. Mom, could you not use so much salt when you cook? Your blood pressure. Mom, can you turn the TV down? Jake's doing homework. Mom, we're going out Saturday night. You'll be okay here by yourself, right? They weren't being cruel. They were just living their lives, and I was in the way. One afternoon, I was in the guest room when I heard Jennifer on the phone with her sister Rachel. I know it's the right thing to do, but honestly, it's exhausting. I can't even run to the grocery store without worrying about her. She didn't know I could hear her, but I did. And that's when it hit me. Living with family doesn't make you less lonely. Sometimes it makes the loneliness worse because you're surrounded by people and you still feel invisible. After 3 months, I told Jennifer I was going home. She was worried, said I wasn't safe living alone. But I insisted. I needed my own space. I needed to stop feeling like a burden. Back in my house in Tucson, I felt relief, but I also felt the weight of everything I couldn't do anymore. The stairs were getting harder. Cooking exhausted me. I'd drop things, forget things. One afternoon, I was trying to change a light bulb in the kitchen, and my hands started shaking so badly I had to give up. I just stood there holding this burned-out bulb thinking, this is how it happens. This is how you stop being able to take care of yourself. So I looked into getting help. A woman who could come a few times a week to clean, cook, run errands. The first one was named Patricia. Nice lady in her 50s, efficient, professional. At first it felt strange having a stranger in my house, touching my things, reorganizing my kitchen cabinets. But I adjusted, and it helped for a while. Then the bills started coming. Even part-time help cost $3,000 a month. My Social Security covered maybe a third of that. I had savings, but watching that account drain month after month, I couldn't sustain it. And there were other problems, small things that built up. I like to wash dishes right after meals. Patricia preferred to let them sit. I like my towels folded a certain way. She had her own system. Little differences, but they bothered me because this was my house, and suddenly I was adjusting to someone else's preferences in my own home. Then Patricia left. Family emergency. Couldn't come back. So I had to start over with someone new. Different person, different habits, everything different. The third one lasted a month. The fourth lasted 2 weeks. Every time someone new walked through my door, I had to explain everything again. Where things went, what I needed, how I liked things done. I was exhausted and still spending money I couldn't afford to spend, so I canceled the service. Now I'd run out of options. Or so I thought. Friends, every story I tell you is released every day. But YouTube will only show them to you if you tap the red subscribe button. Please do it now while I'm speaking. Tap subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll never miss a story. Have you done it yet? Thank you. Jennifer found a place. Sunrise Senior Living, about 20 minutes from her house in Phoenix. $3,000 a month, clean, good reputation, medical staff on site. She suggested I try it for a month just to see. Mom, just give it a chance. I agreed, mainly because I was tired of trying to figure it out on my own. The day I moved in felt surreal, like checking into a hotel except I wasn't leaving. My room was small, clean, impersonal. Nothing like home. The first few days weren't terrible. I met other residents. We played cards in the common room, ate meals together. The food was decent, institutional but decent. But by the end of the first week, I started feeling trapped. Wake up at 6:30, breakfast at 7:30, lunch at noon, dinner at 5. I've never eaten dinner at 5 in my entire life, but that's when they served it. If you missed it, you missed it. I like to read late at night, always have. But at 9 o'clock the hallway lights dimmed. If they saw light under my door, someone would knock. Mrs. Miller, it's time for bed now. Time for bed. I'm 65 years old. I've been making my own decisions for over 6 decades, and now a stranger half my age is telling me when to go to sleep. One evening I wanted to walk outside. It was a beautiful night, cool desert air, clear sky full of stars. I headed toward the door. A staff member stopped me. Outdoor time ended at 7, Mrs. Miller. Safety policy. Safety policy. Those 2 words became my prison. The worst part? I wasn't even that sick. I could walk, think clearly, take care of myself. But here I was, living like I'd lost all independence, like I was helpless. After 3 weeks, I called Jennifer. I told her I was leaving. Mom, you said you'd give it a month. This isn't living. I'd rather struggle at home than be comfortable in a cage. The day I left, the sun felt brighter. The air felt fresher. I was free again. But back home in Tucson, I still had the same problems. Still couldn't handle everything alone. Still got tired. Still dropped things. Still felt scared sometimes. I'd tried everything. Family, caregivers, a facility. Nothing worked. For a few days, I just sat, watched the neighborhood from my window. Tried to figure out what to do next. Then one afternoon, I was walking to the small grocery store on the corner. Not the big Safeway, that's too far now. Just the little place 3 blocks away. I passed my neighbor, Michelle. She lives 2 doors down. Young woman, maybe late 30s. Always looks stressed. She was on her phone, pacing back and forth on her driveway. I can't leave work early again, David. My boss already said something last week. She hung up. Looked like she might cry. I knew her situation. Single mom, works full-time as a nurse at the hospital. Her daughter's maybe 7 or 8 years old. Without thinking much about it, I walked over. "Excuse me, Michelle, right? If you ever need someone to pick up your daughter from school, I walk past there every day anyway." She looked surprised. "Oh, I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not asking, I'm offering." She hesitated. Then, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "What's her name?" "Sophia. 2nd grade at Desert View Elementary. I'll be there at 3 tomorrow." That's how it started. The next day, I picked up Sophia, walked her home. She chattered the whole way about her teacher, her friends, a project she was working on. When Michelle got home at 5, she knocked on my door with a plate of food. I made extra lasagna. "Please take this." I tried to refuse. "You don't need to do that. You're helping me. Let me help you." That became our routine. I picked up Sophia every day. Michelle brought me food a few times a week. But it became more than that. Michelle's boyfriend James, when he was around between his construction jobs, fixed my leaking faucet, helped me change that light bulb I couldn't manage. Michelle helped me figure out how to pay bills online, set up grocery delivery for the heavy stuff I couldn't carry anymore. Sophia drew pictures for me, stuck them on my refrigerator, started calling me Miss Dorothy. One afternoon, Michelle said, "You know, you've really changed our lives. I was drowning before." I smiled. "You changed mine too." I'd forgotten what it felt like to be useful. And that was it. That's what I'd been missing. I didn't need someone to take care of me. I needed to still matter, to still have something to give. But I didn't realize how deep this arrangement would go, or how much it would teach me about what really matters when you're facing the reality of getting older. Because what happened next showed me that community isn't just about helping each other with practical things. It's about dignity, about purpose, about remembering that your value doesn't disappear just because your body starts failing you. The arrangement with Michelle and Sophia grew into something I hadn't expected. It wasn't just about picking up a kid from school or getting a hot meal a few times a week. It was about feeling like I belonged somewhere again, like my presence made a difference. Sophia would run out of Desert View Elementary every afternoon at 3, backpack bouncing, blonde ponytail swinging, looking for me in the crowd of parents and caregivers. "Miss Dorothy," and my heart would lift every single time. We'd walk the 3 blocks to her house, and she'd tell me everything. How Emily shared her cookies at lunch, how she got a gold star on her spelling test, how she was nervous about the science fair project. I listened, really listened. Because I had time, and because I remembered what it was like to be 7 years old and have things that felt enormous and important. And Sophia listened to me too. She'd ask about Robert, about what life was like when I was young, about the black and white photos on my mantle. She was curious about everything, and her curiosity made me feel seen. Michelle noticed the change in both of us. One evening she came over with dinner and sat at my kitchen table while I ate. "You've been so good for Sophia. She talks about you constantly." She paused, looking down at her hands. "And honestly, you've been good for me too. I was falling apart trying to do everything alone." "I know the feeling," I said. She looked up. "I know you do. That's why this works. We're both trying to figure it out." But it wasn't just Michelle and Sophia anymore. Word spread in the neighborhood. James mentioned to his buddy Carlos that I was home most days. Carlos lived across the street with his wife Linda. They both worked, and their elderly mother had just moved in with them from Albuquerque. She spoke mostly Spanish, was confused by the new environment, didn't like being alone all day. Linda knocked on my door one Saturday morning. "I don't know if Michelle told you, but we have a situation." Her mother, Rosa, was sitting in their living room every day, lonely, scared, not understanding where she was or why her children were gone so much. Would I be willing to sit with her sometimes, just for company? "I don't speak much Spanish," I said. Linda smiled. "She doesn't speak much English, but maybe that doesn't matter as much as we think." So Rosa started coming over 3 mornings a week. We'd sit on my porch with coffee. She'd talk in Spanish about her life in New Mexico, her late husband, her garden. I'd talk in English about Tucson, about Robert, about the hummingbirds that came to my feeder. We didn't understand most of what the other said, but somehow we understood enough. The loneliness in her eyes matched the loneliness in mine. The need to matter to someone, to be seen, to be heard. That transcends language. Linda would pick Rosa up before lunch, always bringing something. Tamales, enchiladas, fresh tortillas. You're doing us such a favor. This isn't a favor, I'd say. This is friendship. By the end of that first month, my quiet, isolated life had transformed. I wasn't sitting alone watching the neighborhood from my window anymore. I was part of it. Sophia on weekday afternoons, Rosa on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings. Michelle stopping by with dinner, James fixing things around my house that I couldn't fix myself, Linda teaching me Spanish phrases, Carlos helping me set up a new phone that actually worked. And here's what surprised me most. I wasn't just receiving help, I was giving it. Real help that mattered. Michelle could keep her job because I was there for Sophia. Linda and Carlos could work without worrying about Rosa sitting alone all day. James had someone who noticed when he seemed stressed and asked if he wanted to talk. Sophia had an adult who listened to her dreams about becoming a veterinarian and told her she could do anything she set her mind to. I had purpose again. Not the purpose I'd had when Robert was alive. Not the purpose I'd had raising Jennifer and Rachel. Different purpose, but just as real. Maybe more real, because it was built on need, on genuine connection, on people choosing to be there for each other. One afternoon in late September, I was sitting on my porch with Rosa when Jennifer pulled up. She got out of her car looking concerned. "Mom, we need to talk." She came up the steps, nodded politely at Rosa, sat down in the other chair. "I've been worried about you. You're still here alone. You're not getting proper care." "I'm getting exactly the care I need," I said. She looked around, confused. "From who? From my neighbors? From my friends?" She frowned. "Mom, that's not sustainable. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you need real help?" "Jennifer, I am getting real help. More real than anything I got living with you or hiring strangers or sitting in that facility." She looked hurt. "I didn't mean it like that," I said quickly. "You did everything you could. But this works. This is what I need." She didn't understand. How could she? She was still young enough to believe that professional care and proper facilities and safety protocols were what mattered most. She hadn't learned yet that sometimes the most important thing isn't safety. It's dignity. It's purpose. It's knowing you still have something to offer the world. After Jennifer left, Rosa looked at me with her dark, knowing eyes and said something in Spanish. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the meaning. She knew. She'd lived long enough to know that the hardest part of getting old isn't losing your body. It's losing your place in the world. But I wasn't losing mine. I was finding it again, in the most unexpected way possible. And what was about to happen would prove that sometimes the unconventional path is the right one, even when everyone around you says it's wrong. If you want to know how this story ends and discover many more, hit the red subscribe button. It's free and it helps me a lot. October came, and with it, the first signs of cooler weather in Tucson. The desert air turned crisp in the mornings, perfect for sitting outside with coffee. I was on my porch with Rosa one Thursday when a woman I didn't recognize walked up my driveway. She was maybe 50, professionally dressed, carrying a tablet. "Mrs. Miller? Dorothy Miller?" I nodded. "I'm Sharon Davis from Adult Protective Services. Your daughter filed a concern. Can we talk?" My stomach dropped. I glanced at Rosa, who looked confused. "Yes, of course. Come in." I showed Sharon to my living room, offered her tea. She declined. "This is just a wellness check," she said, but her tone suggested it was more than that. "Your daughter is worried that you're living alone without proper support. that you're relying on informal arrangements with neighbors instead of professional care. My neighbors are helping me, I said carefully. And I'm helping them. That's wonderful, Sharon said in a way that made it clear she didn't think it was wonderful at all. But at your age, with your medical history, we need to ensure you're in a safe environment. Can you tell me about your current living situation? We talked for an hour. She asked about my medications, my diet, my daily activities. She asked about falls, about confusion, about whether I could manage my finances. She asked about Michelle and Rosa and Sophia. Are these people licensed caregivers? No, they're my friends. Do they have background checks? They're my neighbors. Are they trained in elderly care? They're trained in being human beings, I said, probably too sharply. Sharon made notes on her tablet. Mrs. Miller, I understand you value your independence. But my job is to ensure vulnerable adults are protected. Based on this visit, I'm going to recommend a follow-up assessment. What does that mean? It means we'll evaluate whether you can safely continue living independently or whether you need a higher level of care. She stood up, handed me a business card. Someone will be in touch to schedule a home health assessment. In the meantime, please consider your daughter's concerns. She loves you and wants what's best for you. After Sharon left, I sat at my kitchen table shaking. Not from weakness or age, but from anger. Jennifer had called Adult Protective Services on me. My own daughter had reported me like I was some kind of neglected elder. She'd decided that because I wasn't following the conventional path, I must be unsafe. That evening, Michelle came over with Sophia. She took one look at my face and sent Sophia to play in the backyard. What happened? I told her about Sharon's visit, about the assessment, about Jennifer's concern. Michelle's jaw tightened. They're going to try to force you into a facility, aren't they? I don't know. Maybe. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Michelle said, "We won't let that happen." I looked at her. "You can't stop it. You're not licensed caregivers. You're not medical professionals. That's exactly what they'll say. That's exactly what they're already saying. So, we'll prove them wrong. We'll show them that this works, that you're not neglected, that you're thriving." How? Michelle thought for a moment. We'll document everything. Your health, your daily activities, the support network. We'll get letters from everyone who helps you. We'll show them that informal care can be just as good as professional care, maybe better. I wanted to believe her, but I'd seen how the system works. It doesn't care about happiness or community or purpose. It cares about liability and protocols and checking boxes. The home health assessment was scheduled for the following Wednesday. A nurse named Barbara showed up at 9 in the morning, clipboard in hand. She checked my blood pressure, my reflexes, my cognitive function. She walked through my house looking for safety hazards. She asked the same questions Sharon had asked. Then she asked to speak with my primary caregiver. "I don't have one," I said. "I have friends who help me." "That's not the same thing, Mrs. Miller. Can you call one of them?" I called Michelle. She came over on her lunch break, still in her scrubs from the hospital. Barbara interviewed her like she was on trial. "How often do you check on Mrs. Miller? What medical training do you have? What would you do if she fell? What if she had a medical emergency?" Michelle answered every question calmly, professionally. Then she said, "I'm a registered nurse. I work in the ER at St. Mary's Hospital. I see Mrs. Miller every day. I monitor her health informally. She has my number. She has emergency numbers posted by her phone. She's on a first-name basis with half the neighborhood. If something happened, she wouldn't be alone for more than an hour." Barbara made notes. "What about meal preparation? Who ensures she's eating properly?" "I cook for my family every night," Michelle said. "Making an extra portion costs me nothing. Mrs. Miller eats better now than she did when she was living alone." Barbara looked skeptical, but wrote it down. After Barbara left, Michelle squeezed my hand. That went okay. I think. I wasn't sure. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. Based on our assessment, we recommend Mrs. Miller transition to an assisted living facility within 60 days. Current living arrangement does not meet standards for adequate elderly care. Family members are encouraged to explore placement options. I read that letter 3 times. Then I called Jennifer. She answered on the second ring. Mom, I got a copy of the assessment. I think it's time we seriously look at Sunrise again. They have a room available. No. Mom, you're not safe there alone. I'm not alone. Your neighbors aren't enough. They are enough. They're more than enough. They're what I need. We argued for 20 minutes. She was coming from a place of love, I knew that. But love doesn't always understand what's best. Sometimes love tries to protect you right out of the life you've built. After I hung up, I sat on my porch and watched the sun set over the Tucson mountains. I thought about giving in, about making it easier for everyone, about checking into Sunrise and letting them control my schedule and my freedom and my dignity. Then Sophia ran across the yard with a drawing she'd made. Miss Dorothy, look, it's you and me and Mommy and Rosa. We're all holding hands. I looked at that crayon drawing, at the stick figures with big smiles, at the house she'd labeled home. This was my life now, messy and unconventional, and not what anyone expected. But it was mine. I made a decision that night. I wasn't going to fight the system alone. If they wanted to see adequate care, I'd show them what adequate care really looked like. The next morning I knocked on Linda's door. She answered with flour on her hands, in the middle of making bread. Dorothy, come in. What's wrong? I told her about the letter, about the 60-day deadline, about Jennifer's pressure to move into Sunrise. Linda wiped her hands on her apron, called Carlos. They both sat at their kitchen table and listened. When I finished, Carlos leaned back in his chair. So they want to put you in a facility because you don't have professional care? That's stupid. You have half the neighborhood looking out for you. That's not how they see it, I said. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, what if we formalized it? I don't understand. What if we created something official? A care plan, schedules, documentation? Show them that informal doesn't mean inadequate. By the end of that week, Linda had organized a neighborhood meeting. 12 people showed up at my house on Saturday afternoon. Michelle and James, Carlos and Linda and Rosa, the Johnsons from across the street, Martin, the retired teacher who lived next door, even old Mr. Peterson, who mostly kept to himself. Linda laid it out. Dorothy's being pressured into assisted living because she doesn't have formal care. But look around this room. She has more care than most people in those facilities get. We just need to prove it. Michelle pulled out a notebook. Let's make a schedule. Who can check on Dorothy and when? What followed was remarkable. Martin said he walked every morning at 6, could stop by and make sure I was up and okay. The Johnsons said they were home most afternoons. Could I knock on their door if I needed anything? Mr. Peterson, who I barely knew, said he had a medical alert system from when his wife was alive. I could have it if I wanted. Carlos said he'd install grab bars in my bathroom and better lighting on my porch. Linda said she'd coordinate meals so I'd have dinner every night without anyone feeling burdened. James said he'd create an emergency contact sheet with everyone's numbers. Michelle said she'd do weekly health checks and document them formally. But it was Rosa who surprised me most. She spoke in Spanish and Linda translated. Rosa says you saved her life when she moved here. She was lost and scared. You gave her purpose again. She wants to give you the same thing. Over the next 3 weeks, my house transformed. Carlos installed the grab bars, non-slip mats in the shower, better locks on the doors. Martin brought over a pill organizer and helped me set up reminders on my phone. Michelle created a health log where she tracked my blood pressure, medications, and any concerns. Linda made a meal schedule. Monday, Michelle. Tuesday, Linda. Wednesday, the Johnsons. Thursday, Martin. Friday, James. Weekends flexible. Nobody cooking for me every night, just including me and what they were already making. No burden, just community. The emergency contact sheet went on my refrigerator. 12 names, 12 phone numbers, 12 people who'd committed to being part of my support system. James laminated it. Michelle added instructions for what to do if I fell or seemed confused. Carlos added his mother's name to the list, even though she didn't speak English. In emergencies, language doesn't matter. I documented everything, every meal, every visit, every health check. I took photos, I kept receipts for the grab bars and safety equipment. I wrote down conversations. I wanted proof that this wasn't neglect, that this was care, real care, better than anything I could pay for. When Jennifer came to visit in early November, she walked into a different house than she'd left. The safety improvements, the medication system, the emergency contacts, the meal schedule. She stood in my kitchen reading the chart on the refrigerator. "Mom, what is all this? This is my care plan. These are my caregivers." She looked around, confused. "Your neighbors did this?" "We did this. Together." She sat down at the table. "The assessment said you needed professional care." "I have professional care. Michelle's a nurse. Martin taught first aid for 30 years. Rosa's raised 5 children and taken care of 2 parents through terminal illness." Professional doesn't just mean someone with a certificate. It means someone who knows what they're doing. Jennifer was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I was so worried about you." "I know. But you were worried about the wrong things. You were worried about me being safe. But safety isn't just grab bars and medical alerts. It's knowing people care. It's having purpose. It's being part of something." "Does this really work? Come see for yourself." Over the next hour, people stopped by. Martin on his morning walk, Linda with fresh bread, Sophia running in after school, Michelle checking my blood pressure. Each one talking to me, laughing, sharing news, treating me like a person, not a problem to be managed. Jennifer watched it all. Finally, she said, "I still worry. You're my mom. I know. But you can worry and trust at the same time. This works. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm not alone." The 60-day deadline came and went. I never heard from Adult Protective Services again. I think Michelle called Barbara, the assessment nurse, and walked her through everything we'd done. I think she explained that sometimes the best care plan doesn't come from an agency. It comes from people who genuinely care about each other. Jennifer stopped pushing for sunrise. She still worried, still called every few days, still visited every couple weeks. But she stopped trying to fix something that wasn't broken. One afternoon she said, "I'm sorry I called APS. I thought I was protecting you." "You were protecting yourself," I said, "from having to watch me struggle. But struggle is part of life. The question isn't whether you struggle. It's whether you struggle alone." By December, I'd lived in this arrangement for 6 months. My health was stable, better than it had been in years. My spirits were high. I had purpose, community, friendship. I mattered to people, and they mattered to me. But more importantly, I discovered something about aging that nobody talks about. You don't have to choose between independence and help. You don't have to give up control to be cared for. There's a middle ground, and it's built on mutual support, on give and take, on recognizing that everyone has something to offer regardless of age. I still couldn't open tight jars, still got winded on stairs, still forgot things sometimes. But those limitations didn't define me anymore. What defined me was showing up for Sophia every afternoon, sitting with Rosa every Tuesday and Thursday, being someone my neighbors could count on for a listening ear or a kind word. I'm 65 years old. I live alone in a 3-bedroom house in Tucson, Arizona. And I'm not lonely. I'm not scared. I'm not waiting for the day when I can't manage anymore. I'm living now, today, on my terms. Now I'm not saying this is the solution for everyone. Your situation might be different. Maybe you're sicker than I am. Maybe living with family really does work for you. Maybe you need more medical care than neighbors can provide. I'm not judging any of that. But here's what I learned through all of this. What I want you to understand, if you're facing these same questions about your parents or about yourself, you don't have to choose between total independence and total dependence. There's space in the middle, and that space is where real life happens. You can accept help without giving up control. You can contribute without exhausting yourself. You can age without disappearing. Community matters more than money. I spent thousands on caregivers and still felt alone. Now I spend almost nothing and feel more connected than I have in years. Because money buys services, but it doesn't buy relationships. Michelle doesn't help me because I'm paying her. She helps me because I help her. That's different. That matters. I still have something valuable to offer. I have time. I have experience. I can walk a little girl home from school. I can sit with a lonely elderly woman who doesn't speak my language. I can listen when someone needs to talk. Age doesn't make you useless. It just changes what you have to give. The system isn't designed for this. It's designed for clear categories, for professional credentials, for liability protection. It wants to put you in a box labeled dependent or independent. It doesn't know what to do with people who are both, so it tries to push you toward the box that's easier to manage, safer to defend, more profitable to maintain. But you don't have to let it. You can build something different, something that works for you, even if it makes other people uncomfortable, even if it worries your children, even if it doesn't fit the standard model. Jennifer and I talk every week now. She's made peace with my choice, mostly. She still worries. She probably always will. But she's seen that this works, that I'm thriving, that informal care can be just as good as professional care when it's done with intention and commitment. Last week, Sophia turned 8. Michelle threw her a party in their backyard. All the neighbors came. Rosa made tamales. Martin brought a cake. Mr. Peterson even showed up with a wrapped present. Sophia insisted I sit next to her when she blew out the candles. When everyone sang happy birthday, she squeezed my hand. Later, when people were leaving, Michelle pulled me aside. Thank you for being here, for being part of Sophia's life, for being part of all our lives. I squeezed her hand back. Thank you for letting me matter again. Maybe someday I'll need more help. Maybe I'll end up in a facility after all. Maybe my health will decline to the point where neighborhood support isn't enough. I'm not naive about aging. I know what's coming eventually. But for now, I'm here, still useful, still connected, still myself. And that's worth fighting for. That's worth building a different kind of system for. That's worth showing people that there's another way. Thank you for sitting with me today, for listening to an old woman figure out how to age without disappearing. If you want to sit with me again, I'll be here, still working on it, still finding my way. If you enjoyed this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part impressed you. There's more tomorrow. See you there. Take care of yourself, however that looks for you.